In this latest ruling, New York District Judge Richard Berman calls the government request a, quote, diversion. He writes that the grand jury material would add little or nothing new and notes that it is dwarfed, his word, dwarfed by what the Justice Department already has if it's ever released. Today, Skye and Amanda Roberts, the brother and sister-in-law of the late Epstein survivor Virginia Giuffre, posted a statement praising Judge Berman's decision and adding this: "It is our strong belief that Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein did not act alone, and the DOJ is fully aware of this fact. We call for full transparency from the administration and insist that the DOJ release all documents related to this case." After years of fighting for justice and working as an advocate for sex trafficking survivors, Virginia Giuffre died by suicide in April. Her family at the time said she was the light that lifted so many survivors. I spoke with Amanda and Skye Roberts yesterday. Skye and Amanda, thank you both for joining us tonight. Skye, we learned that the House Oversight Committee intends to make some Epstein files public with redactions to protect victims' identities after they start receiving materials from the Department of Justice on Friday. I'm wondering what you make of that, and do you trust that this will provide some kind of transparency that you've been calling for?
Yeah. First, Anderson, thank you so much for having us tonight. It really means a lot to us. I would say that certainly it seems as though it is movement in the right direction. And I do want to actually thank Representative Comer for actually making sure that the survivors' information is redacted. That's definitely a concern of ours. On the same hand, you know, we're very wary that this may be just another move of the Department of Justice, right? Where they're saying they're going to do one thing, but then their actions are showing a completely different thing. And so to kind of leak these documents where people are implicated that are heavily, you know, redacted, you know, one time at another, that's not really full transparency.
Are you both concerned that the third-party names who were complicit in Epstein and Maxwell's crimes may also have their names redacted?
Yeah.
Yes, I think unequivocally, yes. We are very concerned that the names that are implied in there. I think it's important that we protect survivors, that the names redacted for the survivors are for the utmost protection. But, you know, let's be clear, the people that are involved in this and that are in these files are monsters, they're predators, they're you know, they're people that have created sexual abuse against young women, children. And so, no, their names should not be redacted out of these files. I think it's important that they are held to the highest form of law and justice, and that's what people are looking for.
Virginia fought for transparency, for accountability for a long time. I know, Amanda, you've said she even called for the release of documents in one of your last conversations with her. Is that right?
Yeah, I think that's her legacy, right? It wasn't just, you know, the exposure, but then beyond exposure is accountability. And one of our very last conversations, she told me, like, my files are sitting at the Southern District Courts right now, waiting to be unsealed. And that was her fight. And that is the fight of all survivors, right? Let's expose these monsters and hold them accountable.
Skye, when you heard about the transfer of Ghislaine Maxwell, I'm wondering what went through your mind.
I'm not quite sure why why we continue to negotiate with somebody who is a known perjurer, as well as someone who sex trafficked and was convicted of sex trafficking children. And so for her to be put up in what I would call it a posh prison, a minimum security prison, is an insult. And quite frankly, it absolutely shows that there's some sort of negotiation going on. I mean, let's be real. And we're not stupid, right? I mean, people are smart here. I think you can see between the lines that there's some type of negotiation going on. And so, you know, for her to just moments after speaking to the Department of Justice to be transferred to a prison that would, again, be labeled to me as a posh prison would be, it's an insult. And so she needs to be immediately transferred back to a maximum security prison, held to the highest standards. And I think the last part and the last point here is that, President Trump himself stated that people that have sex trafficked across borders should be held to the harshest penalties. And yet we're seeing the exact opposite right now, in the sense that she's being transferred to a minimum security prison, which I'll just state as the Real Housewives prison. So it's an insult to us. It's an insult to survivors. And she should be immediately transferred back to a maximum security prison.
Sky, I want to just ask you, and if it's too personal, you don't have to answer, but you're emotional, and I understand that. And I'm wondering, I mean, this is really hard. People appear on TV and talking about this stuff, and people at home kind of think, okay, you're another person appearing on television. This is your sister. Virginia is your sister and is your sister. And this is hard. I mean, the emotion of this, even though this has been going on for a long time, it's got to be extraordinarily hard for you.
Yeah. I think it's important. I'll crack a quick joke in that I'm the crier of the family. So,
so am I, it turns out, actually. So,
well, good. We have something in common.
I didn't cry until I was like
Great.
50, and now I can't stop. So,
I want to show it as a sign of strength, though, in the strength that she had, and the amazing person that she was, and still is. She fought for so many survivors out there, and I think if she were with us today, I mean, she'd be screaming, Anderson. She'd be screaming from a mountaintop, and yeah, we're still dealing with grief. I think that's important to know, is that this just happened in April. Okay, we're not far removed, and immediately, obvious, there's this spotlight on the current situation, which really, to me, feels like an injustice, because all we're asking these people to do is the right thing. That's all that she ever asked for, was just to do the right thing. So yeah, I'm a little emotional about it. I've been emotional about it, but it's for all the right reasons, and because we're asking for one simple thing, which is accountability. I think the survivors deserve that. My sister deserves that. And she'd be screaming that from a mountaintop right now.
What more do you want people to know about your sister, Amanda, about your sister-in-law?
Wow. I think everyone sees her as like this strong, fierce lion, and she was that. And she was formidable, and she fought every day of her life to survive everything that she had gone through and that she was still going through.
Congresswoman Summer Lee, she is on the House Oversight Committee Kristen was just talking about, and was a driving force behind subpoenaing the Epstein Files from the Justice Department. Congresswoman, thank you for coming in. So what do you first make of this judge's ruling rejecting the Trump administration's bid to release these grand jury documents and the way he talked about it?
Yeah, we're not surprised by that, right? At the end of the day, we have a way of getting all of the information, all of the details that the American public wants, that truly bipartisan. There are Dems and Republicans who want it, and that, justice demands. And that's through the DOJ file. That's the DOJ. We subpoenaed them. They are able to release, and should, and have been commanded to release all of the files, complete, full, unredacted. And that includes the underlying evidence of this case. So that would be included in our subpoena. So this actually doesn't impact the subpoena. The subpoena is where we're going to get all of our answers.
Yesterday was the deadline for the Justice Department to comply with the subpoena. That has come and gone, which, without any files, please tell me if you've received them quite yet. What, if anything, have you actually heard from DOJ is actually going to happen?
Yeah, so, we heard the same thing that you did. Comer, of course, issued the subpoena. And in it, there was this 2-week deadline, right? The DOJ comes back this week and they say that they're going to start to slow trickle in some of the information, some of the files starting on Friday. Now, what we know is, of course, that's obstruction, right? This is a further obstruction of justice, right? The subpoena gave a deadline. It gave a strong deadline, and it was called for, again, full, complete, unredacted file. So their unwillingness to release that all at once, it continues to just raise more questions. What are they trying to hide, right? What is the big cover up, and why are they not able to do this, right? Pam Bondi herself said she had the files weeks and weeks ago. So we know that they exist. We know that they're complete, and we know that they could just hand them over. But they keep drawing this out, which, mind you, is causing further damage to the hundreds of victims who are having to relive this, who are seeing this play out in the news, who's watching their president, the FBI, the intelligence community, all seem to be a part of a massive cover-up at the level of, quite frankly, Watergate.
But do you have any idea who is deciding what your committee does and doesn't get? Who is deciding what is redacted, how it is redacted, and what documents are going to be coming over in this first, one of my least favorite words in the world, in this first tranche? Like, that seems critical in terms of what you're going to get. And is the public going to see it right away?
Yeah, I mean, we recognize that this is a Trump-led DOJ. We knew that going into this, right? We recognize how influential he is over all of, over his federal government, over his executive branch right now. So we always knew that there was a strong possibility that the DOJ, that Trump, that all of the people around him would try to, obstruct, try to, basically push this off or demur, all of that. We expected that. Who's going to, and who's in control of it, we don't know. But what we can say is that the subpoena was very specific in its language. That subpoena asked for unredacted files. It was voted on properly in the federal law enforcement subcommittee with bipartisan support.
This is a nightmare for Trump, an absolute nightmare. You have people speaking up. We've seen the young girls themselves speak up that were hurt by this Epstein stuff and by Trump's weaponization of it since. And we have the families in some cases of people speaking up, because sad as it is and real as it is, not everyone is still with us because of the harm caused by Jeffrey and Ghislaine and all the other people, perhaps including Donald Trump. But this whole move he tried to pull, where he tried to basically say to the court, release the grand jury stuff, the courts made it clear. I want to make this clear, because I don't think some people really saw the judge's rationale. He basically said, not that I don't think this is important, and not that, I think this should stay secret. He basically said, what we have at the grand jury testimony is besides the point. You don't need this. You don't actually need these documents, because basically everything I have, you have at the DOJ. Sealed at the DOJ under your authority. And not only do you have what I have for the most part, you also have a whole bunch of other stuff I've never seen. Because the grand jury stuff is narrowly focused on, will they or won't they bring charges against people like Epstein and Maxwell? And they didn't really, because they didn't look, it doesn't appear to be that they look to indict other people. So any of the other alleged co-conspirators in the public mindset, did Donald Trump do something? The grand jury is not going to be focused on that. Either to tear that down or to bolster that argument. All of that other stuff around who saw what, when, who were the people sold to, right? Like this debate between, he stole this girl from me, which Trump said about Epstein. Like those sorts of things, if they exist in this narrative, will be found in the DOJ files much more than in court files. And Donald's been exposed. So what the judge said and what the victims are saying is, Donald, you have all the power, more than any other person in this world, to release the info. Don't blame a judge. Don't blame anybody else but yourself.